Today is Friday, September 5, 2014, the 248th day of the year. There are 117 days remaining until the end of 2014. On this day in 1698, in an effort to westernize his nobility, Czar Peter the Great of Russia imposes a tax on beards for all men, except the clergy who claim a divine right to wear facial hair, and the peasantry, whose beards are the only object of any value they own, other than the chicken. They hand out these really cool tokens, medallions really, to payers of this tax, made of copper, or even better, silver, with the Russian eagle on one side, and on the other, a bas-relief image of a nose, mouth, mustache, and yes, a beard. Below the two phrases in Cyrillic letters translated from the Russian as, "The beard is a superfluous burden," and "money taken." Generally, the accepted understanding behind this tax is Czar Peter I, also known as Peter the Great, is impressed by Western European culture, who isn't, most especially the French, and he wants to modernize Russian society to spruce up his people mainly to build St. Petersburg. And everybody has a beard in those days, even the Russian women. Many of the children, too, so it's a natural source of revenue. But really, in 1700, in alliance with Denmark, Norway, and Saxony, Peter goes to war with the Swedish Empire, a bloody struggle that goes on for 20 years. He needs to pay for all that. Peter the Great, don't know if you know this guy, they call him that, first of all, because he's 6'8", which is about 3 feet taller than most Russians in those days. His title alone is 118 words, and when it starts off, Most Excellent and Sovereign Prince, it's just getting going. Love how after listing all the places he rules, title goes, "and many other states and lands, western and eastern, here and there." That's the actual translation, vague and random. If it isn't nailed down and you aren't sitting on it, it's Peter's. Even if you are sitting on it, Peter's army will knock you off and take it. He's the Tsar. The Tsar does pretty much whatever he wants. After the Swedes back off, Peter becomes emperor of all the Russias. He has 2 wives and sires 14 children, so that's great too. Only 3 of them live to adulthood, not so great, and one of them becomes Catherine the Great, Peter's successor. His eldest son and heir, Alexei Petrovich, is suspected in a plot to overthrow his father, the emperor. Alexei escapes, flees to Vienna, taking refuge with his wife's brother, the Holy Roman Emperor Charles VI. Peter writes to Alexei, tells him if he just comes back to Russia and tells Peter the truth, nothing will happen to him. Alexei falls for it. Big mistake. Oldest trick in the parental handbook. He's arrested and a confession is tortured out of him with hot irons. He implicates all his friends who are subsequently impaled or broken on the wheel. Alexei doesn't survive the torture to make it to his own execution. Pete's a tough dad. He don't play. Runs a tight ship. Henry VIII levies a beard tax 2 years earlier. The longer the beard, the more you have to pay. His daughter, Elizabeth I, the Virgin Queen, sure she is. She reintroduces a beard tax for everyone with more than 2 weeks growth. If you are clean-shaven in Elizabethan England, you're marked as a tightwad. On this day in 1666, the Great Fire of London ends. 10,000 public buildings, including St. Paul's Cathedral, are destroyed, but only 6 people are known to have died. Also, 13,200 homes and 87 churches consumed. 70,000 of 80,000 residents are homeless because of the fire, which is said to have started in the bakery run by Mr. Thomas Farringer on Puddin Lane during the evening of Sunday, September 2, 1666. Farringer has just pulled a hot loaf out of his oven, and falsely believing it's cool enough to be handled without potholders, takes hold of the loaf with his bare hands. Quite the opposite, however, is the reality that night, and badly burning his hands on his hot loaf, tosses it onto a pile of greasy rags, which instantly burst into flames. By morning, the fire spreads throughout the heart of London. Rumors quickly fly that foreigners, doubtless the French, and also likely the Dutch, with whom the English are at war, have deliberately set the fires. Angry Londoners round up immigrants, and of course Jews, just for good measure, beat them up and in some cases lynch an unfortunate few. By Tuesday, the fire spreads through most of the city through a fortunate change in the weather and abatement of hitherto strong easterly winds, and the use of explosives to create fire breaks. The Great London Fire quelled on this day. On this day in 1877, Oglala, Lakota chief Crazy Horse is murdered when he's bayoneted by a U.S. Army soldier after resisting confinement in a guardhouse at Fort Robinson in Nebraska. The previous year, height of his brilliant career, Crazy Horse, then in his mid-30s, leads the gathered Lakota and Cheyenne warriors camped along the Little Bighorn River in eastern Montana territory against the U.S. 7th Cavalry under George Armstrong Custer. 10 years before all that, when Crazy Horse is a young warrior in his 20s, he invites Black Buffalo Woman to accompany him on a buffalo hunt in the Slim Buttes. Problem here, Black Buffalo Woman, she's married to another guy, no water. who has a drinking problem and a reputation for his bad temper. Problem for No Water is Black Buffalo Woman is no longer satisfied living with an angry, drunk Indian who doesn't have a clue how to please a woman. Back in those days, a Lakota woman can divorce her husband anytime she wants. All she has to do is move in with some relatives or another man and throw her husband's belongings out on the teepee, which, of course, belongs to her. You might have to compensate the husband with a couple ponies or a new carbine, but No Water isn't around when Black Buffalo Woman goes off hunting with Crazy Horse, so it's a little illicit. Further complication, No Water furious when he finds out what's going on and goes after Crazy Horse with a snootful and a loaded pistol. Crazy Horse gets shot through the jaw. Elders don't want any more spilled blood, so No Water has to give Crazy Horse 3 ponies. Because Crazy Horse has been with a married woman, he temporarily loses his tribal rank. American author Thomas Pynchon writes, everybody gets told to write about what they know. The trouble with many of us is that at the earlier stages of life, we think we know everything. Or to put it more usefully, we're often unaware of the scope and structure of our ignorance. From Rutland, Vermont, this is Richard Alcott speaking.